Hello, everyone. I'm Julian Mercer, a 32-year-old freelance photographer living in Asheville, North Carolina. Today, I'm going to share a true story from my life. A story that set my heart racing, made me question those closest to me, and ultimately taught me how to stand tall against dark schemes. This isn't your typical tale of family dinners. It's about how my mother-in-law deliberately slipped something into my wine glass, how I turned the tables, and my journey to uncover a web of lies spanning decades. If you've ever felt dismissed by family or those you trusted, stay with me. This story will keep you curious on edge and maybe even inspire you to protect what matters most. Hit that like button, subscribe, and join me on this journey because I promise you won't want to miss a single moment. It all began one Sunday evening at my mother-in-law, Diane's 60th birthday party. I'd just returned from a wildlife photography assignment in Montana, wading through knee-deep snow to capture bison for National Geographic. My work isn't just a hobby, it pays the mortgage, takes me to breathtaking places, and fills me with pride. But to Diane and my father-in-law Gerald, an investment banker with pricey watches and a mansion-like home, I was never good enough for their daughter Haley. Every visit to their house came with Gerald's condescending glances and questions like, "Photography, still going okay, Julian? When are you getting a real job?" Diane was subtler, always smiling while introducing me as the photographer instead of son-in-law. Haley, my love, would squeeze my hand under the table, a silent apology. But that night, I felt an odd premonition, like something was deeply wrong, waiting to pounce. When Diane announced she'd made a special sangria for dessert, I volunteered to help carry glasses from the kitchen. That's when I saw something unbelievable. Diane stood by the counter, holding a small vial, pouring a colorless, odorless liquid into one sangria glass. She flinched when she saw me, quickly hiding the vial and saying, "Oh, Julian, this one's for you. A special recipe for my favorite son-in-law." Her smile was chillingly fake, and when I looked closer, I saw a faint film on the sangria's surface. My heart pounded. This wasn't a prank. Something was seriously wrong. I stayed calm, grabbed both glasses, the tampered one and a normal one, and brought them to the dining room. Gerald, as usual, was glued to his phone checking stocks. I placed the special sangria in front of him, saying, "Here's your sangria, sir." Then I excused myself for water and sat down, watching. About 45 minutes later, Gerald started sweating. His face turned pale, and he bolted to the bathroom. The awful sounds from inside sent the house into a panic. Diane looked at me, and in that moment, I knew she realized what I'd done. Without a word, I kept eating my chocolate cake, but inside I felt a cold fury. This wasn't just disrespect anymore, it was a plot. I decided I wouldn't let this slide, but I wasn't going to play their game. I'd make them face who they really were. Let me pause to explain why this shocked me so much. I met Haley 6 years ago at an art gallery where my photos were displayed. She was finishing her master's in environmental science, and I was building my reputation. We clicked instantly, she got my passion for photography, and I admired her love for nature. But her parents, they were a different story. From our first meeting, Gerald bluntly said he expected Haley to marry someone with a desk job, someone like him. Diane was slyer, praising my photos while asking, "When are you settling down with a stable career?" I tried to fit it in, bringing expensive wine to dinners, showing off published photos, mentioning big clients. Nothing changed. They always saw me as a transient someone Haley would soon outgrow. Once I overheard Diane on the phone, Haley could have married Thomas, the orthopedic surgeon, wealthy family. But she picked this creative guy. The word creative sounded like a disease in her mouth. I thought time would make them accept me. I was wrong. Small signs started appearing, but I ignored them. Diane would call Haley to the kitchen whenever I mentioned a successful project. Gerald once suggested Haley get therapy for her impulsive decisions, staring at me as he said it. They accidentally left me out of a family photo once. I told myself, it's just a misunderstanding, Julian. Don't make a big deal. But that night, at Diane's birthday, it went too far. After Gerald got sick, Diane muttered something about bad seafood, but her eyes told the truth. She knew I'd switched the glasses. I didn't confront her then. Instead, I quietly took the untouched sangria meant for me and brought it home. The Monday after the dinner, I took the sangria to Jason, an old client who runs a toxicology lab. Personal or business, he asked. Family, I replied. 3 days later, he called. Julian, there's benzodiazepines in the glass. Not enough to kill, but enough to knock someone out for hours, maybe cause memory loss. Where'd you get this? I thanked him, requested a written report, and didn't answer his question. The results chilled me. Diane didn't just want to embarrass me, she wanted me to collapse, maybe to prove to Haley I was unreliable. But why? And how far had she gone? I started digging. I found Diane had Xanax prescriptions from 3 different doctors, stockpiling pills. I also heard town gossip. Diane had acted strangely at a neighbor's party, even accused of stealing jewelry at the country club. Her family covered it up, but the truth always finds a way. I kept this from Haley. At first, I didn't want her thinking I was trying to turn her against her family, but I knew I needed more proof. Then an opportunity came when Haley said Diane wanted me to take portrait photos for her social media. I agreed, but not to take pictures. I brought an envelope with the toxicology report and Diane's prescription list. When I arrived at their house, Diane was alone, dressed elegantly, makeup flawless. Before she could speak, I handed her the envelope. You should see this, I said. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Nonsense, she whispered. I'd never do that. But I cut her off. We both know what happened, Diane. What I don't know is why. Her face hardened. You're not good enough for Haley. You never will be. A man should provide security, not pictures. I kept my voice steady. And slipping drugs into your son-in-law's drink is security, she snapped. It wouldn't hurt you. Just make you sick. Miss that stupid gallery show you kept bragging about. So Haley could see you're not dependable. I let her talk, then said, here's what's going to happen. You'll tell Gerald what you did. Then you both start respecting me, not because you've changed your mind, but because if you don't, Haley will know who her mother really is. Diane scoffed, but it was shaky. Haley will never believe you over us. I left without taking a single photo. That night, Diane called Haley, sobbing that I'd acted inappropriately during the shoot, claiming I was hostile and threatening. When Haley asked me, I couldn't hide it anymore. I showed her the toxicology report, the prescriptions, and years of Diane's increasingly hostile texts. My mom wouldn't do that, Haley repeated, but her voice lacked conviction. The next day, she confronted her parents. I wasn't there, but when she returned, her eyes were red. Dad said, it's a misunderstanding, she said. That you're trying to tear us apart because you're insecure about your career. I just nodded. I'd expected this. But then Haley asked, "What do you think?" I replied, "What do you think, Haley?" She didn't answer, just went to bed and turned away from me. For the next 2 weeks, Haley barely spoke to me. She visited, her parents alone, coming back with red eyes and more doubts. I threw myself into work, waiting for the storm to pass. Then a package arrived, no return address, just my name. Inside was a USB and a note. "You need to see this. Vanessa." Vanessa was Owen's wife, Haley's brother. The USB held security camera footage from Diane and Gerald's house. I saw Diane in the kitchen, clearly slipping something into a glass. I saw myself walk in, take both glasses. I saw Gerald drink from the tampered one, but there was more. A clip from after we left showed Diane yelling at Gerald, blaming him for drinking the wrong glass. Gerald snapped back, "This isn't the first time you've done something like this." I watched it over and over, trying to process. It wasn't just Diane's actions. It was a pattern, and Gerald knew. The next video from 2 days after the dinner showed Diane and Gerald arguing in their living room. "He knows what you did," Gerald said. So what Diane replied, "Anything he says is just his word. Haley won't choose him over family. And if she does, she's not my daughter." Diane said coldly, "Don't worry, I've started talking to Haley about their marriage issues." Planting seeds. By the time I'm done, Haley will want a divorce and think it's her idea. I shut the laptop, hands shaking. This wasn't just about me. It was a systematic effort to control Haley's life, to isolate her from anyone who didn't fit their vision. And they'd been doing it for years. I called Vanessa immediately. "Why'd you send this?" I asked. "Because they did the same to me when I married Owen," she said. "They tried to break us up for 2 years, saying I wasn't good enough. It almost worked. Owen doesn't know. He idolizes his dad. I tried to tell him, but he thought I was paranoid. I couldn't watch them do it to someone else." The next day, Gerald texted me, "We need to talk man to man. No wives." I met him at his golf club. Gerald sat in a private room, sipping bourbon. "Julian," he began, "family is complicated. My wife, she's tough, protective, but means well. Slipping drugs into someone's drink is well-meaning," I asked. He waved it off. "A misunderstanding. Diane takes anxiety meds, probably mixed up the glasses." I replied, "I have security footage, Gerald." His face changed cold. "What do you want?" "Money. I always knew you married Haley for money." I said simply, "I want you two to leave us alone. Stop convincing Haley I'm not good enough. Stop meddling in our marriage." Gerald sneered. "You think this is the first time we've dealt with your type? People trying to leech off our family? Haley will come home where she belongs. Ask her about Thomas, her fiancé, before you." I felt a chill. "What are you talking about?" Gerald smirked. "Haley was engaged before you. A nice doctor. We didn't like his background. Took 6 months to convince Haley he wasn't right. She called off the wedding, came crying to Daddy. On the drive home, I called Bethany, Haley's college roommate. "Oh God," Bethany said, "that was awful. Thomas was perfect for Haley, but her parents convinced her he was cheating, even faked evidence. He tried to explain, but she didn't believe him anymore. The pattern was clear. This wasn't just about me. It was about controlling Haley's entire life. And they'd done it before. I didn't confront Haley right away. Instead, I gathered more evidence. I reached out to Thomas, who was hesitant to talk. When I explained, he sent old emails between him and Haley showing how her parents sabotaged their relationship. I found other ex-boyfriends, old friends of Haley's, who had suddenly drifted away. A pattern emerged. Anyone who encouraged Haley's independence was pushed out of her life. Vanessa provided more security footage, showing Diane and Gerald plotting to break us up. When they divorce, we'll convince Haley to come home, Gerald said in one clip. She can run the foundation, meet proper men. I invited Owen and Vanessa to dinner, not telling Haley beforehand. After dessert, I hooked my laptop to the TV. There's something you need to see, I said. For an hour, we watched the videos. Haley sat frozen face, pale. Owen shook his head, muttering, "That's not my parents." When it ended, Haley looked at me, tears streaming. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I needed you to see for yourself," I replied. "Not just what they did to me, but what they've done to you your whole life." Owen stood angry. "You edited this?" "My parents wouldn't do that." Vanessa touched his arm. "They did it to us too, Owen. Why do you think they suddenly liked me after we had James? A grandson gave them leverage." Owen's face paled. "You never told me." "I tried," Vanessa whispered. "You didn't listen." That night, Haley lay beside me. "I need time to process," she said. "But I believe you, and I'm sorry for doubting you." The next morning, Diane called. Haley put her on speaker. "Sweetie," Diane said brightly, "I think you should come stay with us for a while. We're worried about you. Marriage is hard, and sometimes space helps you see clearly." Mum Haley interrupted. "I saw the videos. Security footage. You drugged Julian's glass. You and Dad plotted to ruin my marriage." Silence. Then Diane said, "Haley, whatever he showed you is edited. You know Julian's always been jealous of our family." "Stop," Haley said firmly. "We're coming over tonight. All of us, me, Owen, Vanessa, Julian. We'll talk as a family. No more lies." When Haley hung up, she looked at me. "They'll deny everything. They'll try to blame you." I nodded. "I know." "So what's our plan?" For the first time in weeks, I smiled. "I think it's time your parents met the real Julian, not just a photographer, but someone who knows how to tell a story." That night, we arrived at Gerald and Diane's with my camera gear. Owen and Vanessa were already there, sitting stiffly in the living room. Gerald acted confident. "I understand. There's a misunderstanding," he began. "No misunderstanding," I interrupted, setting up a tripod. "I'm recording this for the family record." Diane objected instantly. "This is private." "Exactly." I agreed. "Family business. And I'm family, no matter how hard you've tried to change that." For the next 2 hours, we laid it all bare: the sangria, the manipulation, Thomas, the ex-boyfriends, the pattern of controlling Haley and Owen's lives. Gerald and Diane denied everything, calling me unstable, manipulative. But with every denial I played at a video, showed an email. Their faces grew paler, their denials weaker. Finally, Haley stood. "I love you. You're my parents. But what you've done is unforgivable. You don't get to control my life anymore." Owen nodded. "We're adults. We choose our partners, our paths." Diane started crying, not from remorse, but from realizing she'd lost control. Gerald just sat there, stunned, as if he couldn't believe his kids dared defy him. As we prepared to leave, I handed Gerald a USB. "This has everything: videos, emails, testimonies. It's yours. Keep it." "What's this mean?" he asked, suspicious. "It means I'm not destroying your reputation by sharing them." That would hurt Haley, and I'd never do that. But if you or Diane interfere in our marriage again, or badmouth me, copies go to every golf club member, business partner, and your precious social circle. For the first time, Gerald looked at me with something like respect. I underestimated you, he said. Yes, I replied. You were wrong. 6 months passed. Haley and Owen started therapy to heal from their parents' wounds. Diane and Gerald kept their distance, sending occasional texts, but respecting our boundaries. Then for the holidays, they invited the whole family for dinner, a fresh start. The invitation read, Haley wanted to go. They're still my parents, she said, and they're trying. I agreed, but I wasn't naive enough to believe they'd changed. When we arrived, everything seemed normal. Diane prepared a lavish spread. Gerald was friendly, asking about my latest project with genuine interest. After dinner, Gerald invited me to his study. I have a proposition, he said, pouring a scotch. I've been thinking about your career. Photography's fine, but have you considered diversifying? I could get you into my firm, a junior partner role. Generous salary. I held the glass, but didn't drink. Why are you doing this? He smiled. For family. I respect how you handled that unfortunate business. You protected my daughter and stood your ground. That's what a real man does. I set the glass down. Thanks, but no, his smile stiffened. Julian, be realistic. This is an olive branch, a way to move forward. No, I repeated. This is another attempt at control. You can't buy me, Gerald, and you can't stand that Haley loves me for who I am. He bristled. Don't be foolish. Everyone has a price. I stood. That's where you're wrong, and that's why you'll never understand your daughter. I rejoined the dining room where Diane was showing Haley a photo album. Look, she said. You were so happy living at home. Haley caught my eye, sensing something was off. She stood. Mum? Dad, she said clearly. I have news. Julian and I are expecting. I'm 3 months pregnant. Diane froze, then rushed to hug Haley, tears glistening. Gerald approached, slowly glancing at me. Congratulations, he said stiffly. Thank you, I replied, then lowered my voice for him alone. This child will never be a pawn in your games, I promise you that. He nodded, getting the message. On the drive home, Haley held my hand. They'll never change, will they? No, I said honestly, but they'll have to accept us. 3 weeks later, a letter from Gerald's lawyer arrived. Inside were papers transferring the deed to the house we were renting and a trust fund for our unborn child. No note, no conditions, just the transfer. It wasn't an apology, but an acknowledgement, maybe all Gerald could muster. Our daughter Eliza was born that summer. Diane and Gerald visited the hospital bringing gifts, but keeping a respectful distance. They admired Eliza, took photos, then left without parenting advice or financial lectures. Our relationship slowly normalized, though they never apologized. One evening, as I edited photos in my studio, Haley walked in holding Eliza. Mum called, she said. She wants us over for Christmas. What do you want? I asked. I think, Beige, we should go, but on our terms. We stay at a hotel, not their house. We leave when we want. Eliza's never alone with them. I nodded. Fair. She sat beside me, gently rocking Eliza. You know, I used to think success was making my parents happy, earning their approval. Now I know it's about the choices I'm proud of, standing by the people I love. 2 weeks before Christmas, Gerald sent a large envelope. Inside was his company's annual report featuring my photos, landscapes, portraits, architecture throughout. A note read, "Hired the best photographer I know. Thought you'd want a copy." It wasn't forgiveness or reconciliation, but respect, an acknowledgement that I'd succeeded on my terms, not his. I didn't call to thank him. We understood each other. That spring, I opened a gallery in downtown Asheville. At the opening, Haley stood by my side holding Eliza. My parents flew in from Oregon. Friends and clients filled the space. Diane and Gerald came, but didn't stay long. Diane held Eliza briefly under Haley's watchful eye. Gerald shook my hand, nodded at the photos, and left, without suggesting how I should run my business. As I locked up that night, Haley asked, "Do you think they've changed?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said, "but they've accepted they can't change us. Sometimes that's enough." But the story didn't end there. A year later, Diane called, inviting us to their 40th anniversary party. Just a small gathering, she said, family and a few friends. Haley wanted to go, but I was cautious. "We need a plan," I said. "No overnight stays. They don't keep Eliza too long." Haley agreed. When we arrived, their house was lavishly decorated, lanterns, fresh flowers, an acoustic band playing in the yard. Diane and Gerald played perfect hosts, but I noticed subtle glances between them. During the party, Gerald pulled me aside. "Julian, I have a business idea. Ever thought about a bigger studio I could invest silent partner?" I smiled thinly. "Thanks, but I'm happy with what I have." He frowned. "Don't let pride block opportunity, Julian." "It's not pride," I replied. "It's freedom. You don't get that, but Haley does." At the end of the party, Diane tried to take Eliza to show her off to friends. Haley gently took her back. "Mum, I want Eliza with me tonight." Diane smiled tightly, but I saw the disappointment in her eyes. On the drive home, Haley sighed. "They're still trying, aren't they? Just subtler." "Yeah," I said. "But we're smarter." This story doesn't have a perfect Hollywood ending. Diane and Gerald didn't become ideal in-laws, but they learned they couldn't control us. And I learned that winning isn't beating them at their game, it's refusing to play. Let me share another true story to show how common this is. A friend, Mark, had in-laws who tried to split him and his wife by lying about his infidelity. Mark didn't argue or confront. He quietly collected texts and emails, then showed his wife. She was shocked, but the truth helped them set boundaries with her family. Mark's story is like mine, not about revenge, but protecting what you love with truth and patience. Back to my journey a few months after the anniversary, Diane sent an unexpected gift. A family photo album with me in every picture, no longer accidentally cropped out. No apology letter, but the gesture spoke volumes. I'm not naive enough to believe they've fully changed, but I see they're trying in their way. Haley and I keep building our life with Eliza at its center. I expanded the gallery, took on bigger contracts, and for the first time, I felt I wasn't just surviving family schemes, but thriving. This story taught me one thing: you don't need to win by defeating your enemies. Sometimes winning is living well, staying true to yourself, and protecting those you love with honesty. If you're facing someone trying to control or hurt you, family, friends, or co-workers, remember, stay calm. Gather evidence and choose your moment. You don't need to play dirty to win. You just need to play smart. I'm still telling this story, and I'll keep going until you tell me to stop. Because life is a series of challenges, and I want you to know you can overcome them just like I did. A few months after Diane's album arrived, I got an unexpected call from Owen Haley's brother. His voice was tense, unlike his usual calm. "Julian, we need to meet. Just us. It's about my parents. And Haley. My stomach sank. I thought things were settling, but Owen's tone signaled another storm. We met at a small coffee shop outside Asheville. A quiet spot, with wooden walls and the rich scent of roasted beans. Owen was already there, fidgeting with his coffee cup, eyes red, like he hadn't slept. "What's going on, Owen?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. He glanced around as if afraid of being overheard, then slid another USB across the table. "I found this in Dad's office," he said. "After the anniversary party, I got suspicious. My parents, they haven't stopped Julian. They're still planning something." A chill ran down my spine. I'd thought setting boundaries, threatening to expose evidence, and Gerald's concessions were enough to make them back off. Owen just shattered that illusion. I plugged the USB into my laptop right there, and what I saw nearly made me drop my coffee. The first video was from Gerald's private office, recorded weeks after the anniversary party. Gerald was on the phone, voice low and sharp. He thinks he's won, but he doesn't know who we are. "Haley's my daughter, and I won't let a photographer steal her from me. Keep tailing him. I want to know everything: where he goes, who he meets, what he shoots." The person on the other end responded, but I couldn't hear clearly. Gerald nodded, then said, "Good. And if there's a chance making his work more difficult?" I looked at Owen, stunned. "They're having me followed?" Owen nodded. "There's more. Keep watching." The second video was a conversation between Gerald and Diane in their bedroom, recorded just days ago. Diane sat at her vanity, brushing her hair, voice calm but calculated. "Haley's pregnant again, Gerald. A second child will make her more vulnerable. We can use that. Invite her to stay with us. Say she needs rest, needs her mum. Once she's here, we'll make Julian look like an irresponsible husband." Gerald, loosening his tie, smirked. "And if he fights back, we have enough money for the best lawyers. He'll lose everything, Haley. The kid's that rundown gallery of his." Diane turned, smiling. "Exactly. This time, no drugs. We'll do it legally and ruthlessly." I closed the laptop, struggling to breathe. They weren't just continuing, they were escalating, moving from dirty tricks to a more sophisticated war. Owen looked at me, eyes full of guilt. "I'm sorry, Julian. I defended them too long, thinking they were just protecting Simile. But after seeing these, I couldn't stay quiet. Vanessa was right all along." I nodded, but my mind was racing. This wasn't just about me anymore. They were targeting Haley, our kids, our future. But I wasn't going to let them win. Not this time. I didn't tell Haley right away. She was pregnant with our second child, and the doctor had warned about keeping her stress-free. Instead, I contacted Vanessa, who'd become an unexpected ally. "We need a plan," I said over the phone. "But this time, we have to stay ahead of them." Vanessa agreed, and she revealed another shocking detail. She'd secretly installed a tracking app on Diane's phone after the anniversary party, suspecting Diane was contacting a fixer, someone who handles sensitive issues for wealthy families. Vanessa sent me logs of texts between Diane and a man named Mr. Carter. The messages chilled me. "Run a background check on Julian Mercer," Diane wrote. "Find any mistakes, taxes, contracts, anything we can use." Mr. Carter replied, "Found some questionable transactions tied to his gallery. Could get the IRS's attention." Diane responded, "Good. Proceed." I could hardly believe it. They weren't just tailing me. They were trying to fabricate a financial scandal to ruin my career. I knew I had to act fast, but I also needed more allies. I reached out to Thomas Haley's ex-fiancée, who'd been a victim of Gerald and Diane. Over a video call, Thomas looked tired, but resolute. Julian, I lost Haley because of them, and I don't want to see you fall into the same trap, he said. I have a friend at the FBI who investigates financial fraud. If they're trying to frame you, he can help. I agreed, and Thomas connected me with Special Agent Ryan Mitchell. Ryan met me at a park in Asheville, where we sat on a bench overlooking the French Broad River. I showed him the video's texts and the toxicology report from Diane's drugging attempt. Ryan frowned. This isn't just family drama, Julian. If they're hiring someone to fabricate evidence against you, that's a criminal conspiracy. But we need harder proof like a financial transaction or direct communication with the hired party. Ryan suggested I pretend to cooperate with Gerald to lure him into revealing more. I didn't like the idea it was risky, and if Haley found out, she might think I was playing dirty. But I had no other choice. I called Gerald, feigning interest in his silent partner offer for the gallery. I've been rethinking, I said. Maybe an investor could scale things up. What's your specific plan, Gerald? As I predicted, jumped at the chance. We met at his office, a sleek space with windows overlooking downtown Asheville. He laid out a contract, promising a $200,000 investment. But I noticed something odd. The contract required me to transfer 50% ownership of the gallery to a shell company called Carter Enterprises. I immediately thought of Mr. Carter from Diane's texts. This wasn't an investment. It was a trap to control my business, maybe even frame me in a legal scandal. I signed a dummy contract saying I needed time to review and secretly recorded the entire conversation. During the talk, Gerald let slip a key detail. Carter's good at handling complicated matters. He's helped us with a few issues before, like with Thomas. I nearly lost my composure. He'd just admitted to hiring someone to sabotage Haley's relationship with Thomas. When I left, I sent the recording to Ryan. This is a breakthrough, Ryan said. We can trace Carter Enterprises. If it's linked to illegal activity, Gerald and Diane could face serious charges. Meanwhile, Diane started a new tactic with Haley. She called daily, sent gifts for Eliza, and kept inviting Haley to rest at their house because of her pregnancy. Haley, despite knowing the truth about her parents, was wavering. "They're family, Julian," she said one night, as we lay in bed. "Maybe they're trying to change. Mum keeps saying she's worried about me and the baby." I wanted to scream about what I knew, but I couldn't stress Haley. Instead, I said, "I get it, but we need to be careful. They have a history of not being honest." Haley nodded, but I saw the struggle in her eyes. Diane was playing a psychological game, and she was terrifyingly good. Then, another twist hit. One morning, I got an email from an anonymous address containing a document claiming to be an invoice from Carter Enterprises to Gerald, detailing investigation and handling services related to me. The invoice listed items like 24/7 surveillance and fabrication of adverse legal documents. I forwarded it to Ryan, and he confirmed, "This is real, Julian. We can trace the money from Gerald's accounts to Carter. If we prove they paid for illegal activity, it's game over." But there was a catch. The anonymous email's source was unclear, and Ryan suspected it might be a trap to bait me into acting rashly. "Someone's playing both sides," he said. "Maybe an insider or even Gerald testing you." I started feeling like I was in a spy thriller with hidden enemies and unreliable allies. To be safe, I hired a private investigator, Lisa, to track Mr. Carter. Lisa, a sharp former cop, wasn't afraid to dig deep. After a week, she reported Carter's a notorious fixer in Raleigh, working for wealthy families. He's in contact with Gerald, but he's also working with someone else, someone close to Gerald. I was stunned. A traitor. In Gerald's inner circle, I thought of Vanessa, but she'd risked too much to help me. Owen. He gave me the USB, but could he be playing both sides to protect his parents? I decided to confront Owen, but carefully. I invited him to my studio, pretending to discuss a family photo project. When he arrived, I got straight to the point. Owen, I know someone's leaking info to Carter, besides your parents. Do you know anything? Owen paled, but not from guilt, from shock. Julian, I swear I don't know. But last week I saw Dad talking to Uncle Henry, his brother. They mentioned you and Carter Enterprises. I didn't think much of it. But now that you say this, I remembered Henry a quiet man, rarely at family gatherings, but always at Gerald's key events. Could he be behind it all? I had Lisa dig into Henry, and what she found was a bombshell. Henry wasn't just Gerald's brother, he was a silent shareholder in Gerald's company and had a history of financial disputes with his brother. Lisa discovered Henry had been contacting Carter, asking him to dig into not just me, but Gerald too. It seemed Henry was plotting to oust Gerald, using me as a pawn to weaken his brother. I felt like I was in a maze where everyone had their own agenda. But I couldn't stop, not when Haley and our kids were still at risk. I decided to play a bold move. I contacted Henry, pretending to want to collaborate. I hear you have issues with Gerald, I said over the phone. I have evidence that could help you. Videos, emails, everything. But I need you to help me stop Gerald and Diane from targeting my family. Henry agreed to meet, and I could hear the greed in his voice. We met at an upscale restaurant in Charlotte, where Henry revealed his plan: use my evidence to force Gerald to resign as company chairman, giving Henry control. In exchange, he promised to make Gerald and Diane disappear from my life. But one thing chilled me. Henry suggested I sign an agreement, transferring part of my gallery to another of his companies. Another trap. I refused outright, but recorded the entire conversation and sent it to Ryan. This is the final piece, Ryan said. We have enough to launch a formal investigation. Gerald, Diane, Carter, and Henry, they could all face charges for conspiracy and fraud. But before Ryan could act, an unexpected event struck. Haley was rushed to the hospital with severe abdominal pain, though she was only 5 months pregnant. The doctor said it was due to extreme stress, and I knew the culprit, Diane. She'd been calling constantly, sending texts, even showing up at our house when I wasn't home, wearing Haley down. I couldn't keep secrets anymore. I told Haley everything: the new videos, Carter, Henry. She cried, but this time from anger. They won't stop until they destroy us, she said. We have to end this, Julian. We planned a final confrontation, but this time at our house on my turf. I invited Gerald, Diane, Owen, Vanessa, and Henry. I set up a large screen in the living room connected to my laptop and played all the evidence videos from Gerald's office texts with Carter, the invoice, and my recording with Henry. Gerald tried to deny it, but Henry suddenly spoke up. Don't pretend, Gerald. You hired Carter to ruin Julian, but I paid more to ruin you. The room exploded. Diane screamed, accusing Henry of betraying the family. Gerald lunged at Henry, and I had to step in before it turned violent. Haley stood, voice trembling but firm. Enough! All of you, Dad, Mum, Uncle Henry, you've turned this family into a battlefield. I choose Julian. I choose my kids. And if you don't stop, I'll send all this evidence to the police. That was the breaking point. Gerald sank into a chair, face ashen. Diane sobbed, and this time I saw a hint of real remorse. Henry stormed out, muttering about lawsuits. Owen and Vanessa hugged Haley, promising to stand with us. That night, Ryan called. "We've arrested Carter," he said. "He's spilling everything Gerald and Henry both paid him to target you. We're building a case." Gerald and Diane weren't arrested immediately, but they lost most of their social clout as rumors spread. Henry was ousted from the company after shareholders learned of his actions. Haley safely delivered our son Noah a few months later. We moved to a new house far from old memories. My gallery thrived, and I started teaching photography classes, inspiring young artists. Diane and Gerald occasionally sent gifts for the kids, but they stopped trying to control us. One evening, as Haley and I sat on our porch, watching Eliza and Noah play in the yard, she said, "You know, I used to fear we wouldn't make it through. But you fought not by becoming them, but by being better." I smiled. "We fought together, Haley, and we won." But the story didn't end. A year later, I received a letter from Diane, the first she'd written directly to me. "Julian," it began, "I was wrong about you. Not because you weren't who I wanted for Haley, but because I didn't see how much you love her. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying to change." I didn't respond, but I kept the letter. Not because I forgave her, but because it reminded me that even the most stubborn people can waver if you stand firm long enough. The letter from Diane sat on my desk for a week, and every time I saw it I felt an uneasy mix of emotions. Part reluctant empathy, but mostly vigilance. I knew her words might be genuine, but with Diane there was always a hidden layer. Haley noticed my silence as I stared at the letter during breakfast. "What are you thinking?" she asked, cradling Noah, while Eliza played with building blocks on the floor. "Just not sure if this is another game from your mum," I replied, keeping my tone light to avoid worrying her. Haley nodded, her eyes showing she shared my doubts. "I know she said, but maybe this time we give them a chance on our terms." I agreed, but inwardly I knew I needed to brace for any surprises. A few days later, Diane called, her voice so sweet it gave me chills. "Julian, Haley, Gerald and I want to host a family gathering, just to reconnect. Nothing big, just a picnic at our lodge on Lake Lure. The kids can play, and we can talk." Haley looked to me for a reaction. I nodded reluctantly, but said, "We'll come, but just for the day, and we'll stay at a nearby hotel." Diane agreed instantly, which only deepened my suspicions. The woman who once tried to drug my drink wasn't the type to accept boundaries without a backup plan. We arrived at Lake Lure on a crisp fall weekend, the air fresh and the lake sparkling under the sun. Gerald and Diane's lodge was a luxurious timber mansion, its backyard opening to a small dock and vibrant red Adirondack chairs. Eliza ran to the lawn to chase bubbles Vanessa was blowing, while Noah slept peacefully in his stroller. Owen and Vanessa were there, along with their son, James, and to my surprise, Uncle Henry. After our confrontation, I thought Henry would avoid the family, but there he was smiling, as if he hadn't tried to topple Gerald. I kept Haley and the kids close, watching every move Diane and Gerald made. The meal went suspiciously smoothly. Diane set up an outdoor feast with grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, and homemade apple pie, all curated to project the perfect American family image she loved to flaunt. Gerald shared stories from his youth, trying to be charming, but I noticed him glance at me whenever he mentioned career or family responsibility. Henry was quieter, but his eyes were sharp, assessing everyone. After the meal, Diane suggested a walk around the lake, but I declined, claiming I wanted to stay with the kids. In truth, I didn't want to lose sight of any of them. That's when things got weird. Vanessa pulled me aside while Diane and Haley washed dishes in the kitchen. "Julian," she whispered, "I overheard my parents talking this morning. They mentioned a final plan to get Haley back on track. I don't know details, but they mentioned someone named Laura." My heart raced. Laura, I hadn't heard that name in any of Haley's or Owen's stories. "Who's Laura?" I asked. Vanessa shook her head. "Not sure, but I think she's tied to Haley's past, maybe an old friend." Diane said Laura will help set things right. Anger surged, but I stayed calm. "Thanks, Vanessa. Keep an eye on them, okay?" She nodded, and I knew I had to dig deeper. That night at the hotel while Haley showered, I checked my phone. I texted Lisa, my private investigator, asking her to look into a Laura connected to Haley, Diane, or Gerald. Lisa replied instantly, "Give me 24 hours. I'll find her." While waiting, I couldn't sleep. The image of Diane smiling as she handed me that sangria years ago kept replaying. If they were plotting again, I needed to stay one step ahead. The next morning, Lisa called. "Julian, I found Laura." Laura Bennett, 34, lives in Charlotte. She was Haley's best friend in college, but fell out of touch after Haley's engagement to Thomas ended. Diane's been in contact with Laura recently, emails and calls. I'm hacking into Laura's email, but here's something odd. Laura's a lawyer specializing in family law and child custody. Child custody. The words hit like ice. Haley was pregnant, and we had Eliza and Noah. Were Diane and Gerald trying to use Laura to build a case against me? Claiming I was an unfit father, I felt like I was sinking into a nightmare, but I had no time to panic. I asked Lisa to send any emails she found, and in the meantime, I decided to confront Haley gently. As we drove back to Asheville, I said, "Haley, do you remember Laura Bennett?" Your college friend, Haley, frowned. "Laura? Yeah, we were close, but she moved away after I broke off my engagement with Thomas." Why I kept my tone casual. "Just, your mum mentioned her recently. I think she might show up at the gathering." Haley looked puzzled. "Weird. Mum never liked Laura. She always said Laura was a bad influence." I nodded, but inside I knew Diane was playing a bigger game. That night, Lisa sent me a batch of emails between Diane and Laura, and what I read made my blood boil. Diane had hired Laura to build a case against me, alleging financial instability and parental unfitness based on fabricated gallery transactions from Carter. Laura, it turned out, wasn't just Haley's old friend. She owed Diane a major debt from college when Diane paid to get Laura out of a lawsuit. Diane was leveraging that debt to force Laura's cooperation. But there was a bigger twist. Laura, in one email, expressed unease. "I'm not comfortable with this, Diane," she wrote. "Haley's my friend, and Julian seems like a good dad. I don't want to ruin their family." Diane replied, "You don't have a choice, Laura. Do it, or I'll expose your past." I realized Laura could be an unexpected ally if I could reach her before Diane pushed her too far. I contacted Laura through an anonymous email Lisa set up. "Laura, I know Diane's pressuring you to work against Julian Mercer," I wrote. "I have evidence of everything. Emails, videos, recordings. Meet me and we can protect Haley and her kids." I arranged to meet at a Charlotte coffee shop, and for safety, I had Ryan, the FBI agent, monitor from a distance. When I arrived, Laura was there, looking nervous, glancing over her shoulder. "You're Julian?" she asked. I nodded and got to the point, showing her some emails between her and Diane. Laura paled. "I didn't want to do this," she said. "Diane helped me years ago, but now she's using it to manipulate me. She wants me to file a custody suit, to take your kids, saying Haley's better off with her." I fought to stay calm. "Why's she doing this?" Laura sighed. "Diane's obsessed with controlling Haley. She thinks if Haley divorces you, she can push Haley to marry someone suitable, like Thomas, or someone she picks." Laura agreed to cooperate. She gave me all her correspondence with Diane and a recorded call where Diane ordered her to ruin Julian at all costs. I sent the evidence to Ryan, who confirmed, "With this, we can charge Diane and Gerald with extortion and conspiracy. But we need to catch them in the act, like a money transfer or a concrete move." I had a bold idea. Have Laura pretend to follow Diane's plan, but trick Diane into signing a document admitting her intentions. Laura agreed, though she was scared. "If Diane finds out, she'll destroy me," she said. I reassured her, "We'll protect you." For the next few weeks, Laura played double agent. She sent Diane fake reports, claiming she was building the custody case. Diane, smug about her impending victory, grew more open. In a recorded call, Diane revealed a shocking detail. "When Haley loses the kids to us, she'll break. That's when Gerald will bring her onto the company board, a powerful position, but under our control." I could barely believe it. They didn't just want to split us up, they wanted to turn Haley into a puppet in Gerald's business empire. I felt a rage I'd never known, but I knew I had to stay cool. Then, an unexpected event hit. One night, as I edited photos in my studio, my phone rang, a strange number. I answered, and a deep male voice said, "Julian Mercer. This is Carter. We need to talk." My heart pounded. Carter, the man Gerald and Henry hired to ruin me, was calling me. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "I know what you're doing," he said. "You think you're clever, but you're playing with fire. Gerald and Diane aren't my only targets. Henry paid me double to make sure you and Gerald both go down." I was stunned. Henry wasn't just targeting Gerald, he wanted me destroyed to ensure no one blocked his path to company control. Carter continued, "But I'm a businessman. I can switch sides if you pay more." I nearly laughed at his audacity, but saw an opportunity. "Meet me," I said. "Bring proof of your work for Gerald and Henry. If it's convincing, we'll talk money." I immediately called Ryan, and we planned to catch Carter in the act. The meeting was set at an abandoned warehouse outside Asheville, a spot Carter chose likely to intimidate me. But Ryan and his team were ready with hidden cameras and mics. When Carter arrived, he carried a briefcase full of documents, contracts, emails, and call logs between him, Gerald, and Henry. "You want the world to know how dirty Gerald and Diane are? This is it," he said, sliding the briefcase toward me. "But I want $500,000, and you guarantee the FBI stays off me." I pretended to consider, but before I could reply, floodlights blazed, and Ryan's team swooped in. "Carter, you're under arrest for extortion and conspiracy," Ryan said. Carter shouted, accusing me of betrayal, but I just watched as he was cuffed. His briefcase was a gold mine. Enough evidence to nail not just Gerald and Diane, but Henry too. But the story didn't stop. When I got home, Haley was waiting, eyes red. Julian, Mom just called. She says she knows what you're doing with Laura, and if you don't stop, she'll reveal a secret about you, something that'll make me leave you forever. I was stunned. A secret? I'd never cheated on Haley, never done anything wrong. But Diane was a master manipulator. She could invent anything. I hugged Haley, promising to find the truth. I called Laura, who revealed a bombshell. Diane had hired a hacker to forge emails, making me look like I was having an affair with an old client. The emails were sent to Diane, and she planned to use them to blackmail me, or worse, send them to Haley to shatter her trust. I knew I had to act fast. I had Lisa trace the hacker, who turned out to be a guy in Raleigh. Fearing arrest, he handed over all data, including the original emails Diane ordered him to create. With this, Haley and I planned a final confrontation, but not at our house. We invited Diane and Gerald to Ryan's office at the FBI's Asheville headquarters under the guise of a reconciliation meeting. When they arrived, smug and thinking they were in control, Ryan greeted them with a large screen displaying everything: the forged emails, Carter's recordings, the briefcase documents, and Laura's testimony. Diane broke down, sobbing and begging Haley for forgiveness. Gerald, for the first time, said nothing, staring at the floor. Ryan informed them they were under investigation for extortion, fraud, and conspiracy. "You have the right to remain silent," he said, and I saw Diane tremble as the consequences hit. Haley stood, voice steady. "Dad, Mom, I love you, but I can't let you hurt my family anymore. I choose Julianne Eliza Noah and our unborn child. If you want to be part of our lives, you have to change, really change." Gerald nodded, for once not fighting back. Diane just cried, but I wasn't sure if it was remorse or fear of losing everything. In the months that followed, Gerald and Diane faced legal charges. They avoided jail, thanks to top lawyers, but their reputation was shattered. Gerald resigned as company chairman, and Henry, despite trying to capitalize, was shunned by shareholders for his role in the scandal. Haley and I welcomed our third child, a girl named Lily, and built a new life focused on our kids and my work. My gallery became a renowned Asheville destination, and I started writing a book about my experience, not for revenge, but to help others recognize and confront family manipulation. But one final twist came one evening when I received a package with no sender. Inside was an old diary written in Diane's hand. Its pages told her story: a woman controlled by her own parents, forced to marry Gerald to preserve family honor. She wrote, "Julian, I became the person I hated because I didn't know another way. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope Haley and the kids have a freer life than I did." I showed the diary to Haley, who cried as she read it. "I didn't know what Mum went through," she said, "but it doesn't excuse what she did." I nodded. "No, but it helps us understand, and we won't let our kids grow up under that control." My story with Haley and our family was a long journey filled with shocks and betrayals, but it's proof you can triumph with truth and persistence. If you're facing people trying to manipulate or hurt you, remember, gather evidence, find allies, and never give up on what you love. I'm still telling this story, and I'll keep going until you tell me to stop. Because it's not just my story, it's a reminder you can stand tall even when the world tries to pull you down. Diane's diary left me with mixed feelings. part reluctant sympathy, but mostly caution. I knew her words might be true, but with Diane, everything had a hidden layer. After reading it, Haley chose not to contact her mother right away. "I need time," she said, her eyes conflicted. "She might be trying to make amends, but I can't forget what she did." I nodded, but inwardly I told myself the story couldn't end yet. Not when Gerald and Diane's family had proven time and again they never truly let go. Weeks later, as I prepared for a major gallery exhibition with critics from New York and Atlanta attending, I got a call from Ryan, the FBI agent. "Julian, we found a new detail in the Carter case," he said, voice serious. "He claims Diane didn't just hire him to target you, but also to track someone named Margaret Ellis." Ring a bell. I frowned, racking my brain. "No, never heard of her." "Who is she?" Ryan replied. "We're not sure, but she lives in Asheville and seems tied to Diane's past. Carter says Diane was obsessed with finding Margaret, like she holds a major secret. Stay careful if Diane's still digging. She might target you to throw people off." Margaret Ellis's name piqued my curiosity, but I had no time to investigate immediately. The exhibition was approaching, and I was pouring everything into making it a success. This wasn't just a chance to cement my reputation, but a way to prove to Haley and myself that nothing we'd been through could stop me. But the day before the opening, something unexpected happened. A woman in her 50s, dressed simply but exuding confidence, walked into the gallery as I hung the final photos. "Julian Mercer?" she asked, voice steady. I nodded. "I'm Margaret Ellis," she said, and my heart skipped a beat. "We need to talk. About Diane." I led Margaret to my small office behind the gallery, trying to stay calm. "How do you know Diane?" I asked. Margaret sat her gaze sharp. "Diane was my high school friend, but we cut ties over 30 years ago. She thinks I hold a secret that could ruin her, and she's right." I held my breath, waiting. Margaret explained that as a teenager, Diane was involved in a major theft at a jewelry store where she worked part-time. Diane, then 19, stole a diamond necklace worth tens of thousands, but Margaret was wrongly blamed. Diane didn't just stay silent. She let Margaret take the fall, leading to a 2-year prison sentence. "I never forgave her," Margaret said. "When I got out, I moved to Asheville and rebuilt my life. But Diane knows I'm here, and recently she started having me followed. I think she's scared I'll tell the truth, especially to Haley." This was a bombshell. If Diane had a criminal past, it explained her obsession with controlling the family image. But why target Margaret now? Margaret answered before I could ask. "I recently reconnected with Haley through an online college alumni group. I didn't know she was Diane's daughter at first, but when I realized I shared some stories about her mum, not the theft, just old memories. Diane must have found out and panicked, thinking I'd spill everything. I was stunned. Diane wasn't just sabotaging me, she was protecting a decades-old secret, and she'd do anything to keep it buried." I called Ryan, immediately relaying Margaret's story. "If this is true, we could reopen the old case," he said. "But we need physical evidence like police reports or witnesses from back then." Margaret agreed to cooperate, providing the name of a former store employee, Ruth, who could corroborate the story. But she also warned me, Diane's not just dangerous for what she does, but for who she knows. She has connections with powerful people in Asheville. If you take her on brace for a dirty fight. I nodded, but inwardly I wondered if I was putting my family in greater danger. The exhibition was a resounding success, with hundreds of attendees and glowing press reviews. But right after another twist hit, a local reporter, Sarah Klein, contacted me saying she was writing an investigative piece on Asheville's elite secrets with Diane as a key figure. Sarah revealed she'd received an anonymous tip, a package with police reports from the old theft, clearly naming Diane. "I think Diane's trying to silence someone," Sarah said. "And I hear you've had issues with her. Want to share anything?" I hesitated, telling everything could destroy Diane, but it might hurt Haley. I told Sarah I'd think about it, but I knew I needed to find who sent that package. I had Lisa investigate, and she uncovered a shocking detail. The package was sent from an address linked to Henry Gerald's brother. Henry, who'd tried to oust Gerald, was now targeting Diane. Lisa dug deeper and found Henry had hired a private investigator to probe Diane's past, not to help me, but to use her secret as leverage against Gerald in a family asset feud. Henry, it turned out, didn't just want company control. He wanted all of Gerald's wealth, including the Lake Lure Lodge and overseas investments. Diane was the perfect target, as her past could discredit the entire family. I decided to play a risky game. I contacted Henry pretending to want to collaborate again. "I know about Diane's theft," I said over the phone. "If you help me keep her away from my family, I'll give you evidence to take down Gerald." Henry, as expected, took the bait. We met at a small downtown Asheville bar where he handed me another USB, this one with legal documents from the theft, including Ruth's testimony, confirming Diane as the culprit. But Henry didn't know I'd secretly recorded the meeting, or that I'd had Lisa install a tracking app on his phone. "You're clever," Julian, Henry said, sipping whiskey. "But don't think you can outsmart me. I've been at this game longer than you." I sent the evidence to Ryan, who confirmed the documents were legit. "We can reopen the case against Diane," he said. "But Henry's also under investigation for extortion." "You did well, Julian, but be careful. Henry's not the type to go down easily." Ryan was right, but I didn't expect Henry to move so fast. 2 days later, my gallery was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but photos for a charity auction were vandalized. Red ink splattered over works worth thousands. A note was left on my desk. "Stop digging, or your family pays." I knew it was Henry or someone he'd hired. I didn't panic. Instead, I installed more security cameras and hired a guard team for the gallery. I also met Sarah Klein, deciding to share part of the story, but not the theft. I told her about Diane and Gerald's attempts to manipulate my family, asking her to keep my identity anonymous. Sarah agreed, and her article, when published, rocked Asheville. Though it didn't name Diane directly, it hinted at a powerful family with dark secrets, sparking public buzz. Diane called Haley immediately, sobbing and accusing me of ruining the family's reputation. Haley, for the first time, didn't waver. "Mum, if you didn't want exposure, you shouldn't have done those things," she said, then hung up. But Henry didn't stop. He spread rumors that I'd faked photos in my exhibition, accusing me of using Photoshop to deceive clients. The rumors reached a major sponsor who threatened to pull funding from the gallery. I knew I had to confront Henry directly, but I needed a clean plan. I contacted Margaret, who still had ties to influential Asheville figures. "I need you to help me get to the city's Arts Council," I said. "If I can prove my photos are authentic, Henry's credibility is shot." Margaret agreed. arranging a presentation before the council where I demonstrated my photography process from camera to darkroom, with independent experts verifying. The presentation exceeded expectations. The council not only dismissed Henry's claims, but awarded me a grant to expand the gallery. But Henry cornered, lashed out with a final blow. He sent Haley a package of forged documents, making me look like I was involved with Margaret. The packaging included edited photos of me and Margaret at the gallery, made to look intimate, and fake texts. Haley, despite all the drama, was shaken. "Julian, tell me this isn't true," she said, voice trembling as she showed me the package. I hugged her, explaining everything Margaret Henry, his plan. To prove it, I played the recording of my meeting with Margaret, where we only discussed Diane. Haley believed me, but she decided to confront Henry directly. We invited him to our house, and in a tense standoff, Haley forced Henry to admit he'd faked the documents. "I was protecting the family," Henry shouted. But Haley cut him off. "Family, you only care about money and power. You're not my family." Henry left, but not before threatening to sue us. I wasn't worried. Ryan had enough evidence to ensure Henry Trash couldn't do anything but retreat. In the months that followed, Diane and Gerald lived more quietly, avoiding social events. Diane started therapy, and Haley received short letters from her mother expressing a desire to reconcile. I remained wary, but Haley chose to keep a channel open, provided Diane respected our boundaries. Henry ousted from the company board, moved to Florida, and we heard nothing more from him. Haley's and my life grew calmer, but I knew the scars from this battle would never fully fade. One evening, as I taught Eliza how to use a camera in our backyard, Haley stepped out holding Noah and Lily. "You know," she said, "I used to think we'd never get through this. But you didn't give up, and I love you for it." I smiled, setting the camera down. We didn't just get through Haley. We built something no one can destroy. And as I watched our kids play under the sunset, I knew every fight, every twist was worth it. For this family and for myself. Our story, mine, Haley's and our families, faced storms that seemed insurmountable, but standing on our Asheville porch one spring evening, watching Eliza, Noah, and Lily play under a golden sunset, I realized every challenge was worth it. Emily, Haley's newly found sister, is now a vital part of our lives. She brings homemade cookies and stories of her journey to reconnect with her roots, making the kids laugh and warming Haley's heart. Diane and Gerald from prison send occasional letters, but we keep our distances not out of hatred, but because we've learned family isn't those who try to control you, but those who stand by you through every tempest. My gallery is now an Asheville cultural hub, where I not only display photos, but teach kids classes, helping them explore the world through a lens, something I wish I'd had as a child. My book, The Picture of Truth, shares our story and inspires those battling family manipulation. I've received hundreds of letters from readers sharing how they found strength to set boundaries or confront those who hurt them. Haley, now director of an environmental conservation nonprofit, and I started a scholarship fund for kids from tough backgrounds, giving them a chance to pursue passions without toxic expectations. One evening, as Haley and I sat on our porch swing, gazing at stars over the Blue Ridge Mountains, she took my hand. "You know, Julian," she said softly, "I used to think happiness was pleasing my parents, living their way. But you showed me it's about living true to myself with the people I love." I smiled, pulling her close. We didn't just live Haley. We won not by crushing them, but by building a life they can't touch. This story, despite its drama and twists, isn't about revenge or defeating enemies. It's about standing firm against schemes, protecting what you love, and writing your own story. If you're facing people trying to control or hurt you, remember, truth is your strongest weapon, and persistence will lead you to light. Thank you for following my story, a journey from a drugged sangria to an unbreakable family. Live true love deeply and never let anyone define your worth.